Hello everyone, and welcome to a very tired but interesting edition of El Supercast. Once again, returning with us is Mr. Savan. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm fantastically well, sir, and yourself?
I'm doing quite tired, but other than that, quite well.
Excellent.
So,
I feel like we should have some Masterpiece Theater music going for this one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another episode of El Supercast with your host, Ginyu, and special guest, Mr. Gupta. Yes. Tonight's topic in our ongoing series on different genres and styles of conventions is literary cons. Ha ha! Yeah.
right, literary cons, which I absolutely no experience with.
Fair enough. I can take a crack at this, having attended a couple of these myself.
Okay.
Lit cons and speculative fiction cons, specifically literary cons, and conventions that focus on their lit track are very different animals, start to finish. My first real, tangible experience with a literary con was around August of last year. It was my privilege to work as an MC for a convention known as Authors After Dark. My good friend Stella Price, dear friend and con chair, hired me and my company to come in and MC her Victorian ball, as well as liven things up and just represent the steampunk genre. And as such, it was truly a different experience from all of my con going beforehand. For instance, for starters, typically their meal plan is where the majority of the expense is. And that is a super divinely catered event. Posh meals, worthy meals, in keeping with like a gala dinner and so on and so forth. And it really has the trappings of high society, which is not a bad thing. It's actually quite a good thing. And you get a lot of value for what you're paying for. Stella was definitely running a tight ship. Despite external factors, the con was very much a success. And that was Authors After Dark. I'll say this, they had catering rooms, they had specific dining hall events and dinner content for dinner and a show type entertainment. It was one of the most unique and different experiences I've had, and I've never quite felt so fish out of water since my first convention event that I worked professionally. But it was a wonderful experience and I would repeat it 1,000 times over. My second LitCon that I've ever attended was just recently, and it was at PhilCon, the oldest convention in the world. The world's first sci-fi fantasy convention. It holds that distinction, having just run its 76th year. PhilCon, with something of a misnomer, even though it's just across a border, is currently run out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And their program director, Hugh Casey, is a very dear personal friend of mine. Very, very wonderful man, and worked me into the schedule. Again, very, very different style. You have panel rooms specifically run as hotel suites, which some conventions do, some conventions don't. PhilCon did a lot of that. And it's a very different environment start to finish. The content and the style of delivery for the content is very, very different. It's not a fair, it's not a convention where stage shows are so prevalent as are constructive panels and focus groups and discussions with published authors and big names. And I had a blast. It was my pleasure to drink with Keith DeCandido, author of the IKS Gorkon series of Star Trek novels. I had the distinction of meeting Phil Foglio. I met a number of published authors, including the owner of Atomic City Comics in Philadelphia, F. Michael Yates, and a number of very interesting, well-read very, very educated individuals. So if you're looking to have some seriously educated discussions about fandom, like I remember I had jumped on, of all things, a Harry Potter 5 years later panel on that Sunday, and it was surreal on how deep it got as it went into archetypes and tropes and storytelling methods and the basic plots and the hero's journey and then and now and generational storytelling and all manner in between. So if you're looking for a flavor of con that actually really gets into the guts and makes you think and allows you to interact with your favorite authors and so on, the literary con circuit is definitely something for you.
Now, I got a couple of questions about these kind of cons.
Fire away.
So, what's the general feel when you go into them? Is everyone pretty much laid back? Is it more like a serious feel to it?
Yes. It's a convention, so while there's going to be a much more serious, they won't have children running in the halls. Not that there's something wrong with that at, say, an anime con, but they won't have children in the halls playing games in cosplay. But they may have, authors letting their hair down and getting a little more in your face, a little more direct with their personal opinions, and politics may come up and things like that. So it's not good or bad. It's not more serious or less serious. I'd say it's a bit more mature, and that's fine. But it's not any less fun. Like, they certainly know how to get down. If you've never hung out with a published author, not that I want to make a generalization there, but simply put, most published authors that I've had the pleasure of making the acquaintance of definitely know how to party.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. Maybe consider checking these conventions out just to see how it is. So, obviously, at a convention like this, you probably are not going to see people constantly.
I don't know that that's true either. I mean, let's put it this way. There were definitely, I wouldn't call it cosplayers, but there was costuming at Authors After Dark. They had a goddess pageant where they portrayed different mythological deities, and then they actually had a Victorian ball where you had plenty of people dressed up in costumes as airship pirates or debutantes or dilettantes or things like that. You had, you definitely at PhilCon, they have cosplay. They have a cosplay masquerade. They have events that do involve it. It's funny, PhilCon defies definition as just one thing, but I'd say predominantly it is a literary con from my brief exposure to it. I'd also say that it is more, and it does have more, so it's going to vary from con to con. But I wouldn't say that cosplay doesn't exist at these things. I'd just say that it's with a different focus or a different delivery system.
I can see that. It does sound interesting.
It's worth it. If you're an avid reader, if you know your author or authors of choice are going to be at a con, or even if you don't, you're just looking to expose yourself to some new reading material, I'd say the literary cons definitely have something to offer, provided it's once you check out the event and it suits your needs and your interests, then it's worth going to.
Well, in my case, there's a handful of authors that would be cool if I had a chance to meet face to face. So that could be something that I may want to look into.
Cool.
So what would you say was your favorite author at the literary con you had a chance to be in?
That is a tough call. I mean, you're asking me to play favorites, man. Come on now. That's not right. You know that's not right. I will say this. It was a red letter moment meeting Phil Foglio, who is the artistic guest of honor. He's illustrated hundreds of Magic cards, but in addition to that, he was the illustrator for one of my favorite book series, which was Robert Asprin's Myth Adventures series. On the Starblaze publications, Phil Foglio did the covers for all those books. And those covers are what stood out to me in the library as a younger man when I picked them up, and that's what called out to me. Now, Mr. Foglio does specifically write his own comic now called Girl Genius in the steampunk realm, and that's pretty popular as well. I'll say another red letter moment of an author I met is Bill Campbell, the author of The Coontown Killing Caper. And it was so rewarding and so gratifying to see somebody who works in a similar realm of satire to my own and uses cultural stereotypes and overblown ones, to use hyperbole, to tell a tale with a lens of ridiculousness, with the lens of absurdity. So that was an intensely gratifying meeting as well. And Keith DeCandido is just freaking cool. He's one of the coolest individuals I've had the pleasure of meeting. I'd say as well, I got to party with Robert C. Roman. I just missed Gail Z. Martin on both of their panels, and I was very upset about that. But overall, I have not yet met an author I dislike. So I'm not going to play favorites, but I'll say that's the highlights of my PhilCon experience. And with regards to previously, at the previous con I was at, Authors After Dark, almost everyone I met there was amazing. I've made some lifelong friends. I made some people who literally, as friends, have offered me to put me up in their home when I was making a cross-country trip about a year later. So honestly, I've yet to have a bad experience at a literary con.
That's very cool. This is definitely a convention that if I have the funds for, I may want to check out.
You should definitely check out PhilCon in 2013. I'm hearing good things about it already from what's just being planned.
Really?
Yep.
Well, let's just say that if they have a certain author that I'm rather fond of, then hell yeah, I'm making it, and there ain't a damn thing in the world that's going to stop me from making it.
All right. So, were there any other questions?
The time has come.
Ah, very well. Then once again, I'm going to plug a couple websites. You viewers out there should be used to this by now.
Oh yeah, they definitely are.
I mentioned my good friend Stella Price, con chair of Authors After Dark. You can read up more on her convention at authorsafterdark.org. Then I also mentioned my good friend Hugh Casey, program director of PhilCon. You can probably check out PhilCon at its next year's site. Right now, information for the previous year is available at 2012.philcon.org. I'd imagine that 2013.philcon.org will be the site for the new year of PhilCon when it is up and running. But in the meantime, check out PhilCon at 2012.philcon.org.
All right, and I think on that note, it is time to say goodbye. Goodbye, little boys and girls. Come back again sometime next week and hang out with our merry friends.
Have a good one, all. Thank you again for having me. Good night.